Professor William Jacobson joins me now, who's the clinical professor of law and the director of the Securities Law Clinic at Cornell Law School in upstate New York. Professor, it's good to have you on the program. I wanted to talk to you about how you were smeared for giving a lecture on, of all things, hate speech at Vassar College. What happened?
Yeah, hi, Lars. Thanks for having me on. It was the craziest situation. It was like walking into an alternate reality. I planned to give a speech. I was invited by the Vassar Conservative Libertarian Union to give a speech on hate speech and free speech on college campuses, and hate speech in quotation marks because it's not really a legal term. And I was going to discuss how the tension between free speech, where we want everybody to be able to say what they want, and private college campuses like Vassar in Poughkeepsie, New York, where they want to have an inclusive environment and have everybody feel welcome, what the tension is. So I planned to give the speech. I planned to give it in light of Charlottesville, where you had the people marching with the torches. And it really was going to be a speech devoted to the Constitution, to the concept of free speech, why it's important, and how you try to balance it and how other universities have tried to balance it. Well, they completely lost their minds. As soon as they heard that I was going to speak about hate speech as possibly being protected speech, which legally it is, that they literally went nuts. They organized against me coming. They falsely accused me of wanting to bring neo-Nazis and white supremacists to campus to target minority students. They accused me of posting the event on white nationalist websites, all of which was completely false. They had a meeting with almost 300 people on this small college campus devoted to how are they going to protect students from me and my supporters. And it really just, they smeared me. You can imagine what they said about me. And it really was just this moment where a significant portion of the campus just lost it. And they even tried to get my speech canceled. The Vassar Student Association, which is the student government, was a participant in whipping the campus into a frenzy. And they sent a letter to the president of Vassar demanding that I be stopped from coming to campus because my ideas, whatever those happen to be, are not just words. They are actually a physical danger to people. And it was just a very, very crazy, scary sort of situation.
Well, how can it be a physical danger to people to merely say that speech is protected in this country, and the only kind of speech, I'm not the lawyer, you are, the law professor, but the only kind of speech that isn't protected is speech that immediately creates an imminent risk of some kind of damage or danger. So if I shout the classic fire in a crowded theater, or I like to say lately, shouting Allahu Akbar in a crowded theater, that puts people's lives immediately at risk. That's not protected. Virtually everything else is. Are the folks who run these universities confused about that concept?
Well, the people who run the university aren't so confused, but the students are extremely confused. They don't, and this is one of the things that was the hardest thing for me to address, they don't accept as true that free speech is necessarily a good thing. They view, at least the 20 or 25% of the student body who was participating in this, they view everything through the prism of how does it affect their activism? How does it affect what they consider to be social justice? And if words are harmful to their movement, they consider it an act of violence. They literally consider words that they don't like to be an act of violence.
Well, what about their words? I mean, because in most cases, aren't they also expressing things that some people could take as hateful speech? And if they want that standard applied to others to shut others' speech down, what do they expect to be applied to them?
Exactly, and that's one of the points I made. I said, on this liberal campus, you have power, okay? You can try to shut people down, but go outside that gate and you have no power. And if you give up the free speech rights here, why can you expect them outside the gates? That absolutely was one of the arguments that I made.
And what was their response? I'm curious.
Well, it's very interesting. Compared to the frenzy, and you've known me. I've been on your show before.
Yes,
I don't normally talk like this. This was an absolute lunacy that went on campus, a smear campaign against me. Compared to that, we packed the auditorium. There were over 200 people to capacity in the room. They were flowing out into the hallway. And you know what? They actually wanted to hear what I had to say. And I had a 45-minute speech. It's available on YouTube. I had an hour and 20-minute question and answer session with them. And I don't know how many minds I changed, but it was a real dialogue. We went back and forth. They asked some tough questions. It was respectful. So you have the actual event where you had probably total close to 300 students who showed up for this and engaged with me in a productive manner versus the social justice activists who didn't want me to appear, who called me names, who whipped people into a frenzy based on false information. So it really was this dichotomy, and I wonder long-term what impact it has on the campus, whether these students now realize they are being manipulated by these social justice warriors, that these people do not have their interests in mind, that these people are totalitarian in nature, and that they are the ones that people should be afraid of, not me. I just go there and say, my point is the campus, when I was growing up, was supposed to be the freest place for speech in the United States.
Well,
and now it's becoming the least free.
I'm talking to Professor William Jacobson, who's at Cornell Law School. Professor, I had that same experience. In high school, I was a debater, and we did a lot of debate tournaments in high school on college campuses, and it was a thrill for us. But we showed up there, and one of the first things I absorbed was the idea that, yes, here on the college campus, you can hear conservative ideas and liberal ideas. You can hear Milton Friedman economics, and you can hear Karl Marx economics. And I thought, well, that's great, because then the strongest ideas are going to win. But now what we find out is that was only the case to let in the liberal ideas. Now that liberal ideas are predominant on college campuses, now they say now we have to lock out all the wrong ideas. In other words, the conservative ideas, and they're not playing fair.
No, I mean, and that's exactly what it is. They believe that everything is utilitarian in terms of obtaining whatever result they want, and if the speech helps them, all of a sudden it's free speech. But if it doesn't help them, all of a sudden it's somehow racist, bigoted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they get to shut you down. And, I do have to say that, Vassar provided very tight security. Every place I went on campus, I had at least 2 campus security people with me. They had the room packed with security people. So they did allow this to happen. Nonetheless, the students who tried to prevent it from happening, who spread the lies, as far as I know, have not been called out by the administration. They've been coddled by the administration, and they need to be held accountable for what they did because they tried to deprive all these other students of those students' right to education. They wanted to hear me speak, and it's only because these people who really had bad motives in mind, in my view, who wanted to shut down speech, who didn't want an alternative view heard on campus. Yep. It was only because of their antics that this thing blew up the way it did.
Professor, we're up against the clock, but tell people where they can find your comments at Legal Insurrection.
Sure, Legal Insurrection. You can Google my name, William Jacobson. If you want to find out about Vassar, William Jacobson Vassar. On YouTube, you'll find my speeches.
Very good. Professor, it's always